Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello and welcome to What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret, and today I am talking to Dr. Tish Taylor. Dr. Taylor is a licensed psychologist with a private practice in the greater Kansas City area, specializing in clinical assessment and the mental health treatment of children and teens. She is also a licensed school psychologist and an adjunct professor teaching child development. She is the author of Parenting ADHD with Wisdom and Grace, and today we are going to be talking about her new book, Fostering Connection. Welcome, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Margaret.
Let's start with the idea of connection. We understand fundamentally the theme of connection, that we want connection with our children, that hopefully our children want connection with us. What drew you to write a book and explore this theme of connection?
Well, I think it was seeing so many children and teens and families over the years. When they come to me, there's obviously, some bigger stress points, some bigger struggle, some bigger challenge that they're having. And seeing so many over time, I try very hard to work to help children, teens, and their parents and families stay connected, maintain healthy relationships, and even in the face of some challenges like behavior disorders, how do you still maintain connection while there is that stress and strain going on?
And in the book, you use characters to illustrate things like mindset, mood. What's the advantage of that presentation?
Well, I really think we're very visual. As humans, I think we're very visual. And I found myself trying to teach concepts to children so they could understand it. And, I thought if I had a visual tool to say, here, this is what this is, and I could teach the concept with a picture, and then the picture could be immediately remembered or recalled or associated with that concept, such as, deflection, that psychological term deflection. If I had a picture and a visual that, made sense to a kid and even adults, that would be an easier connection.
I also found it, I know when I talk to my kids, sometimes I have tweens. Connection is definitely an ongoing issue in our house, that we get into a lot of kind of language and almost arguing about the language. Like, you're talking to me rudely. I'm not saying anything rudely, like the language around how we're talking and what's happening between us sometimes disconnects us. Does that make sense? Like,
oh, yeah.
We're busy talking about exactly well, you're, being passive aggressive. What's that? That's not me, And does it help to kind of externalize some of these terms and be able to break them down without saying you are this thing?
Oh, for sure. So that's the other thing I really found when I would working with children and teens. And I'm not even their parent. So, it's even less conflictual.
Yes.
But in talking to them, if I could make it more external, they seem to accept it a lot easier, or listen a lot easier, be willing to listen and understand, because it didn't feel so confrontational.
Yes.
And also building on what you just said, that's the other reason why I have two sets of characters. So one is the disconnectors, one is the connectors. So, instead of arguing over a disconnector, like, oh, this is the behavior, we could talk about, well, we are striving for this, so I can also easily and quickly shift it over to what we are striving for and forego the argument about what we're seeing. So that's another way to use it.
Go through some of the characters for us, and for people who haven't read the book, talking through what kind of issues you're trying to highlight for kids and their families.
So I'll use some clinical terms. I'll just throw those out there because this may be an easy way to understand, and then I'll describe them a little bit more. But first off, if you have a child with ADHD, or if you have a child with oppositional defiant disorder, or another disruptive behavior disorder, you will recognize these characters in the disconnectors. If you have a preteen and early adolescent, you will recognize some of these characters.
I was going to say, you don't have to have a child with a diagnosis to recognize, especially, I would say if you have a kid over 8, you're going to be nodding your head and say, oh yeah, I've seen that behavior for sure.
And so I highlight behaviors that include things like not taking responsibility, which I would call deflector. Like, I didn't do it. He did it. You did it. You should have reminded me. That's deflector. I have a character called just no way. And that's when a child just says, no, I'm not going to do that. Or they just passively.
We call that guy Dr. No in our house.
Yeah. Or passively, refusing to do something, right? Like, I hear you, but I'm just going to ignore you and not do it.
Yes.
Also, one character that I use just call fighter. And so that's whenever a person shows up like argumentative, or starting something with their sibling, or maybe there actually is an altercation, but at least certainly argumentativeness or being confrontational.
And where did you see, because we talked about kids who have specific diagnoses, it seems to me as young children, we have kind of a natural connection, whether it's just feeding and hugging and holding our children. At what point do you see, is there an age, because it's not just diagnoses, right? It's not just, there is a very specific problem that enters. This problem of disconnection can happen and does happen in any parent-child relationship. Is there an age where this starts to happen? Is there an inciting incident that causes disconnection? What do you see as the barriers to connection?
Okay, so in typical development, in preschool years, you can get more pushback from children because they're establishing themselves. And this happens into tween years and early adolescence too. There's definitely in that developmental stage, they're establishing themselves more. They're becoming more willful and having their own thoughts and ideas and what they want to do. But I think especially in typical development, tween years, early adolescence, those are typically more challenging in terms of connection. And then on into adolescence, it's a natural break to want to be more with your friends, of course. And the whole social media technology piece we have going on is adding another flavor to that. So I personally, because it's so easy for teenagers to stay on their phone or device and go to their room and not talk, or even in the car, right? We used to be able to talk so easily in the car, but now a device can be in between you. So, I see that as a whole nother flavor or layer, if you will, but definitely early teen years for sure, and into adolescence. But if there's another stress or strain on the family, some other, challenges happen and the parents are struggling or stressed, that can also bring disconnection at any time.
And one thing that I think is important to highlight is that disconnection, or like a cleaving that happens between parent and child, is, and you said this, but I want to kind of drill down on it because I think it's important. It is an important phase of raising a child, is getting to some degree less connected, right? That we're carrying around a baby all day and we want our kids to separate from us. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between fly little birdie, like giving your kids, wings, and this idea of disconnection that's problematic.
I think the more problematic disconnection is when there's ongoing prolonged tension or resentment or anger, like simmering anger. And there's very little positive interaction, even in small doses, right? Like we can come together, laugh at something, or have a good meal together, and when that is few and far between and there's more resentment and potential, simmering conflict, that's when it's more unhealthy.
Right. So it's a difference between like my child and I have maybe 80% of our interactions are positive and I'm helping with homework and we're having dinner or we're all, playing basketball in the yard or just sitting around doing stuff together. And then there are times when they are slamming upstairs and mad about something versus a kid who you feel like you really can't reach. Is that kind of the difference that you're talking about?
Yes, I think it's if you can't reach them, if it's not a comfortable interaction, if there are little jabs, if they're, the communication ends in frustration or just not a lot of emotion or not a lot of positive emotion.
I am talking to Dr. Tish Taylor. She is the author of the new book, Fostering Connection, and we'll be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that, taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
So in talking about connection, one of the things that I think is interesting is we're just coming off of, I guess it's, 3 years ago, the pandemic that brought everybody, into this forced connection, maybe, this period where we were all home together. And you point out that connection is more than just being in space together. You know, it's not just being at home and being together. It goes kind of deeper than that. But I'm wondering, have you seen, was the pandemic helpful or hurtful in allowing people to connect more with their kids?
Interesting. So what I've seen is it depends. They were definitely together more. One thing I saw was parents, when it came to education and schooling, parents got a more distinct bird's eye view of how their child managed academics, how they managed academic tasks. So I definitely saw that.
For sure. It was a total revelation to me. I have 3 kids, 3 very different learning styles. And I would have never known it. It's just really interesting. I'm able to support them, I feel like, in a really different way, having seen them in class, which was sitting in front of a computer in their bedrooms. But it really, it was a very revelatory experience.
Yes. And so I definitely saw a lot of that. And so some came to me after that saying, oh, I can see what the teacher was talking about, or I don't know that the teacher is seeing this, but I am seeing this. And I think in a lot of ways, in terms of the connection piece, in a lot of ways, again, if there was generally a healthy attachment and connection, I think that generally persisted, although we did see an increase in anxiety and depression for sure in our children, especially teens. So that happened.
Yeah, we have heard that from a lot of people, that the isolation actually had some long-term effects that we're still dealing with, that maybe we're not always, we tend to be a little bit like, okay, that was then, let's move along. And I think that we have had guests and just heard it from parents that they're dealing with more anxiety and depression in their kids.
And I would say the families or the kids where there were some behavior challenges, those persisted through the pandemic. And then what that allowed for is the parents not getting a break, so dealing with it just constantly, which is a challenge, or was a challenge.
And being separated from supports too. I have a kid who had supports at school and those were gone, and I think there's a lot of supports, whether it's friends and being outside and doing different things. Suddenly you're all just together. I think that it kind of made things better and worse across the board. Like there was more time together, but at the same time, it kind of exacerbated any problems that were lingering,
Right. And that's why I said it just depends, right? Like, who are you talking about? What are you talking about? There were pros and cons, but they were more extreme than we typically experience. That's for sure.
Let's talk a little bit more about this idea of disconnectors. And I think for a lot of people, disconnection from their kids it's cumulative, right? Like you start to get disconnected and then you get annoyed and they're annoyed with you and then it gets worse and then it gets worse. And I think that people go from like, wait a minute, I had an 8-year-old who would still sit in my lap and we'd watch our show together while we ate cookies, to this 12-year-old who I seem to have absolutely nothing in common with, who I don't particularly like, and who really doesn't like me. And how do you begin to tackle that feeling of disconnection?
Well, I think you have to go back to what's most important and what you really value. And really, when it comes down to it, almost everyone I know will say, I value my family, I value my friends, I value those relationships. And so I think we have to come back to the basis. That is what I value. And then to step back and say, this is a point in time. I have to do it myself, to be really honest, as a parent. This is a point in time. There are some natural developmental changes. And how do I shift or be flexible and adapt to that? And again, so I come back to those characters, and hopefully those are some of those basic things that we try and strive for in our relationships in general and over time. So for example, shoes is one connector character. Can I understand how you might feel in this situation? Or two-way street is another one. Can I understand that your opinion might be different than mine, or the way you see it is different than mine? And can I try and understand? Can I try and understand that? So I think trying to come back to those fundamental skills and some of our fundamental values.
Yeah, because I think this is kind of an ongoing debate that we have on the podcast. I definitely understand the idea of values, But I think sometimes as parents, we're like, well, we value a happy home and happiness. And it's like that value feels, that's right. That's something I try to value, but it's like a goal. There's almost a step before that is action. It's like it's changing behavior versus kind of lofty ideals. Does that make sense?
So I think what you're saying is creating a happy home. We're trying to change our behaviors to get as close to that as we can because nothing's going to be perfect.
Well, I think it's the disconnect sometimes between I want a happy home, but myself and my children do not understand the behaviors that lead us to that happiness. That the idea of like happiness or the idea of it's like our goals, if we aren't really clear on how they connect to our behavior, I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes. Like, I want to live in a happy, peaceful home. That is a value of mine. But when my teen slams his door and I run upstairs to take the bait and say, you will not slam a door in my house. And then he's like, you stop yelling at me. Well, I wouldn't yell if you, like, I'm not valuing my happy home. I am not in a happy home. But sometimes I'm not clear how the dance that I'm doing with my children is making me unhappy. I think the characters that you create are about saying, this is how we're getting to connection, which I think when you are a parent, I have 3 tweens in the house. It just sometimes feels like I'd rather take a nap. I can't figure it out. It seems like we are so far down a bad road. How do we possibly find our way back to whatever crossroads we lost each other at?
I even have these, I use these in little cards. So you probably saw them in the book, but they're also on my website. But you can literally just use the visual, right? As a quick reminder. You know how you post things on your refrigerator or maybe you have a little picture on somewhere on your computer or something like that. You can use that as a reminder, I think. But I also think another quick thing, and this is just in the world of psychology, another quick thing is 4-to-1 or 5-to-1. You can think about the ratio. Have I had 4 or 5 positive interactions to 1 negative? And you can quantify it in a very simple way. And so a positive interaction might be, good morning, Mallory. I hope you have a great day at school. I would count that as 1, right? You're trying to build that bank account. If you've probably heard that term before.
Yes.
But I think that's a simple way when it comes to connection. Am I feeding the bank account? Because I find myself going, wait, have you done this? Have you done that? I don't think that's done. And it's like, that's not positive.
Yes.
That's like Taskmaster. So
absolutely. And I think it is really hard to remember. And especially when you're busy, I'm directing a play right now and we'll do a run through and I'm like, you missed your spot. You were supposed to cross there. You this. And I got feedback from my actors saying like, hey, are we doing okay at all? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's fine. I'm just pointing out the things that need to be fixed to make it perfect. But I'm skipping the 4. I'm not 4-to-1. I'm like 9-to-1 negative to positive. And I think with kids, it's so easy to do that as well because we just feel like, I think we feel that the default setting, especially in a house full of tweens as I have, is, well, we're always just going to be griping at each other. So let's just get through it as fast as possible. We just did the morning routine at my house. And I think the idea of remembering connection, because I sometimes get into the default of it's going to be unpleasant, so let's just make it fast. So I'm just yelling and yelling and yelling at everybody. But sometimes it feels like work to add connection into what we're doing. So if you were saying to me, like, why should I add connection over like speed of just getting everyone out the door and getting the job done? What's the value of connection?
Well, again, I think the value of connection comes back to enjoying each other, right? Enjoying the ride. So we can get through the ride fast and frenzied, or we can get to the ride, having those moments in time and those days that are meaningful and creating memories and creating that, positive regard and love for each other. The other thing I would add is, it sounds simple, but, do I have 10 minutes where I can just listen to you? I just want to hear what you have to say. I just want to hear how your day was. Just tell me, and if we take that time, that builds so much in terms of connection. And there's a lot of positivity that happens when we do that.
Oh, it seems so simple, but it is such a good reminder that I find that I kind of skip the part of like, oh, well, you don't have time for the touchy-feely stuff. We have to get to school. And it's like, if you skip it too often, you're making the problem worse, I think.
I think so.
Oh, all right. I'm going to try. We are talking to Dr. Tish Taylor, the author of the new book, Fostering Connection, and we'll be right back.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW. Let us surprise you.
My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. Let's talk about the Who is Showing Up system. Can you describe it to us and talk a little bit about how it identifies behaviors in hopes that we can improve our response to them?
Well, I think the Who is Showing Up, I like to use that term or that question, if you will, because it's like, how am I presenting myself? You know, what are people perceiving? Because we often don't think about it that way. And so that's why I say who is showing up. And then it makes some of our behaviors very concrete, right? Like, oh, it's this. I am showing up like deflector, or I am showing up like, shoes. How am I presenting and how are people experiencing me?
And this is for both parent side and child side, correct?
Oh, absolutely. It can be used for both. Now, I find with children that, as they're developing, this is a concept they're developing, right? How are other people perceiving me? A young child doesn't quite understand that yet. But again, I use it as a teaching tool for children and even teens to start to think about that and understand that. How, are people seeing fighter?
Yes. And you've obviously written about ADHD and talking about ODD or kids on the spectrum or other diagnoses. The idea, I don't know, is this theory of mind, the idea that someone is having an experience of me that is different than what I am trying to express. That's it's late developing, or it can be a little bit underdeveloped. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. You especially see that on the ADHD continuum and the autism spectrum disorder continuum, for sure.
So can you describe that a little bit? Because I have a child on the spectrum. I've, read and thought about it a lot, but I think it really helps to understand how that deficiency kind of plays out in kids perceiving their own behavior.
Right. So there's some abstractness to theory of mind, right? There's some abstractness in understanding my feelings and thoughts are different than your feelings and thoughts. Or we may live in the same experience or situation and come through it feeling differently about it, or having experienced it different, or even recalling the facts differently. And so that entire concept can be challenging. Actually, I'm glad you brought that point up, because I find myself doing that a lot when I'm working with kids and teens. It's helping them understand that. Ben may have had different thoughts when you were on the playground and you got into an argument. What might Ben have thought? What do you think he thought about that? And then how do you think he felt about that? So I break it down. I think we have to get pretty concrete about it. I mean, children can learn it, Some kids may take a little longer, but I think they're not going to intuit it often. So I find that I have to break it down and teach it.
Yeah, and I think the characters kind of help with that idea of you thought you were being this, but someone else saw this, because I was talking earlier about kind of getting caught in definitions with kids, and I have kids who I constantly have you're speaking rudely. I'm not trying to speak rudely. And I in the beginning thought they were just kind of talking back. And now I think I actually don't think they hear it the same way that I hear it. And I think, how does that play out in terms of disconnection? Like a kid who does not have a well-developed theory of mind, just in case we're using a term that people are not familiar with, and please stop me because you are the professional, is the ability, correct, to perceive that your impression of things is different than other people's? Is that a good definition of theory of mind?
Yeah, I think you're on target. Yeah.
And so in terms of like the conflicts that I'm getting in where I'm saying, this kid is being the disconnector, but I think maybe the kid is coming to me looking for connection, but we get kind of jammed up in that communication space. So how do you suggest, like an anonymous parent, like perhaps myself, would deal with a situation like that? Is it important to get under it and say, you're perceiving this differently than me, and have that conversation in that time? Or is it just for me to kind of drop my sword and say, this kid is having a hard time right now?
Let me say this. So I also have a card that's called Healthy Tools. And that's where I break down those pieces. I break down pieces like tone of voice, using eye contact when you're listening, so I said a calm voice, using, caring about what the other person is saying. So, having your heart in it. So I try and break down those pieces, which you can then refer back to. What I find myself doing is, I understand, sometimes we have to choose what we address in any one moment, right? Like, maybe just separating and calming down is the thing I want to address in this moment. You might in another moment, or come back later to say, the tone of voice I heard sounded like you were yelling at me or you were really mad at me. That's the tone of voice I heard. And then that's, kind of two-way street. Here's what I experienced. Maybe that's not what you thought you were doing. Then I allow the child or teen a chance to explain themselves or own it themselves, but get the feedback in a non-confrontational way or in a way that's not accusatory.
That's right. And I think the wisdom of the book is giving names to everything so that in not that you'll never have the conflict, but then in a calmer time, you can say, yes, I saw this character coming out. Or when we're having a conversation and you're not looking at me and you're speaking in a tone of voice, that it helps break down, not you're rude and I don't like you, but here are where our interactions are going wrong.
Right. And if you do have a kiddo, on the ADHD continuum or the ASD continuum, autism spectrum disorder continuum, you almost have to step back and think they may not understand that. They really might not. And to think about those specific things that they really might need feedback on.
Right. Very concrete. But if the feedback is, you're not looking at me when I talk to you, that makes me feel like you're not listening. That's very different feedback than, listen to me because you're rude. You're not listening, because I have a child who can listen very carefully while doing something else, and that is his preferred mode. But if I'm fighting about listening, we're not understanding each other at all. And let's talk about something that we haven't talked about, but I think it plays, unfortunately, an outsized role in connection, which is screens and the role of technology with kids. We are just re-engaging in the screen battle at my house. We had, in the winter, really let it slip away. And we had my kids now have phones. And so it's in their hands. And every time I turn around and I'm trying to make dinner and I'm trying to say who wants what or who needs to do this, the first step of the process is prying them off their phones, which usually involves some level of battle, hopefully not a screaming fight. But what are the roles of phones and general technology, and what are some of your strategies for combating the horror that is screens? It's a big question.
Just so you know, I am a parent too. So
yes,
I honestly feel like we're plowing through new territory this generation. I really do. I think ultimately, we put devices in front of ourselves and children who are not yet, their brain's not fully developed in a way to put something down that's so enticing. So I think there's that challenge. But I try and think of what is a very simple way. So a very simple way might be, our rule is at dinner, no phones, right? No screens, no devices. And adults have to do it too, right? Because we're guilty too.
Oh, this is the whole problem. We just said no screens in the morning before school because then they're distracted. We're running late. It's 10 times more screaming. And then we both sat down. My husband pulled out his phone because the kids were up getting dressed. I said, remember, we said no screens in the morning. I just turned mine off because it's true. We do the same thing. The minute they're up getting dressed, we pull them out. There's got to be something on Twitter that's fascinating that we have to learn about. That's a bummer, Dr. Taylor. We have to actually model the behavior we want to see.
I think that's what I've come to, right? Protect our sleep routine and getting to sleep. I love your example, of course, about getting ready in the morning so we're not distracted. And those times when you really do have to focus, in those small times when you can make some connection.
Yeah, because it is, you're right, that we always used to, I think of family road trips from my own youth as a huge time of connection. And, I can tell you the lyric of any musical between 1975 and 1990, because that's what we did in the car. We listened to musicals. And it does bum me out. We try to do no screens in the car, but you can read all the excellent advice in the book and you can drill down and you can work hard on connection. But if there's a screen and often two screens between you and your child, I think it just makes it kind of impossible. So is the thing to do to set limits on screens? I guess that's where you have to start, right?
I think so. And I think the device cannot even be in your reach.
Yeah, we have a no screens upstairs policy, but then I bring mine into my room. But I'm trying. I'm working on it. Dr. Taylor, tell us where our audience can find your book and all about the work that you do.
Well, you can find the book on Amazon.com. And so if you just Google Fostering Connection or my name, Tish Taylor, you will find it. You could also go to my website, tishtaylor.com, and you'll find everything on there. Events, you'll find publications. There's even a couple of videos you can watch, but you can find everything on my website, tishtaylor.com.
Fantastic. We will link to all of those places in our show notes. And Dr. Taylor, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Oh, thank you so much.